Hey, everybody. We're here with Miss Dorothy Morgan. We're going to do a show on astrology.
Yeah.
And it grew out of a show I did with someone else. And I'd made a comment that my Saturn was at the 6 o'clock on my chart, and that's at the very bottom. Mm-hmm. And there's some significance to that. And I talked a little bit about it. And then this person wrote, she said, I have absolutely no idea what the hell you're talking about.
Indeed.
What does that mean? So,
right.
Dorothy and I talked about it. So Dorothy is currently, and let me go get my banner on this. Yeah, this is how you can reach Dorothy. Connect at DorothyMorganAstrologer.com. And Dorothy has a gorgeous website. You just go and look at the website. It's one of the best websites I've ever seen.
Oh, thanks.
Yes, but she's also started a real beginner class, and I'll let her explain what it's about, and then we'll go into some of the details. Okay?
Sure. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. It's I've been teaching for years, like 20, and I finally made one that you can do yourself. It's self-study. Mm-hmm. So it's my beginner class. And I finally made one that you can do yourself. Hold on.
So turn your phone off, Dorothy.
I'm trying.
We were just talking about that before we came in there. The stuff we do to ourselves.
I'm watching us on the phone so I can keep up with the live chat, but I didn't realize I had the volume up. Sorry about that. We're professionals. Yeah, I recorded the class just for instruction. Because when I do teach in person, like you teach in person, Nancy Jean, I do record that, and anybody who's in the live classes, you get the recordings at the time. Right. But I don't share that with anybody outside of who's in that group because personal stuff comes up. So I finally, after 20 years, recorded it. It's on my website, self-study. It's the foundational pieces. And that's what we're going to talk about today, just in regard to questions that you have about astrology and how to use it. And one of the most important things that, after all these years, I know a lot about astrology, and I will study forever and learn a lot. But when it comes to yourself, and people who are enthusiasts about astrology and want to understand a little more, what does that mean when they say blah, blah, blah? This is a great place to start because I give you like 4 pieces that are like the 4 pillars of a building or whatever, the building blocks of where to start. And with so much on the internet that you can get your apps, you can read your own transits, but you don't know where it comes from. And to have the foundation, the planets, the houses, the signs, the elements, modalities, polarities, those 4 things, and then putting them all together to understand where to start. That's where you start as an astrologer who's an enthusiast, who's not going to be a reader for other people, maybe just for fun, but that's where you want to start because you can get so much deeper just to understand the weight of, like if somebody's chart is heavy in air or if they're heavy in water, if there's no earth, what does all that mean? And I cover those things, and those are the basic things. And it's just great to understand that so you know more, not just my sun is this, my moon is this, my rising is that. Those are great, but to take it a step deeper, that's what you want. And if you get that class right off the bat, you'll get a half hour with me. So that cuts the price of the class right in half because you'll get a half hour one-on-one time whenever you're ready. And it's 2.5 hours, and there's a workbook, and just it's all of that. And I show you how to do what we learned in the first 4 classes. The 5th class, I show you how to create and make the sentences. And it's wonderful way to just get started. And if you it only takes a couple of hours, but if you spend a long time working with that, you're going to know so much more about astrology by just understanding that. You don't have to go any further if you don't want to. So it's a great place to start. The real basic stuff. And, we miss that, or we forget about it. if we've gotten distracted by listening and just playing with apps and different things like that. So that is, that's why I created that. And I'm going to add to it. I'm lazy about those things.
Well, no, the thing is, it's really, there is so much. When you really start looking at astrology and you try to look at it all on your own, and even with some of the really good apps that are out there that can draw the charts, it's just like,
Yeah.
And I have an app on my phone that I like, and I drew charts with it. And sometimes you see fascinating things. There's two sisters that are friends of mine.
Yeah.
And one, if you think of the chart as, a wheel, and the upper part, is here, and the lower part, there's a line in the middle. And the two sisters, in many ways, couldn't be more different. One's a high-powered PhD and very driven. The other one was a special ed teacher that worked with visually impaired kids. Totally different kind of lifestyles. One lived on 18 acres of ground and with her dogs. The other one likes to live in the city.
Are they twins? Are you saying this because they're twins?
No, they're not twins. They're sisters. But you're kind of like, they came out of the same household. Anyway, when I did their charts, they both gave me their birth information. The one that's really loose and enjoys being out with people, all of her planets are above the horizon.
Above the horizon. Okay.
Above the horizon. The sister that's moody, brilliant but moody, all of them are in the lower half.
Yeah. Yep. So above the horizon is when the sun, I can put that chart up. Let me present. Let me see if I can share my screen. It'll take me just a second. I want is that the one? Yes, there we are.
This one.
Yeah.
This one.
I'm looking.
It's there.
Oh, did it go away?
No, it's there.
Okay, it's not. All right. Okay. I can see it on my phone. It's not quite like Zoom I'm so used to Zoom. Right. So the things, so above the horizon, right? So you can see that line where the ascendant, descendant is. So that's when that's the area when the sun is up. It's not AM, PM on the clock, to be clear. It is not AM, PM. It is when the sun is above the horizon, that part above. So if a person has all their planets up there, that means they were born in the daytime. Now, the ascendant, when the sun comes up to the ascendant, it goes opposite the clock. So it goes backwards to the clock. No, it doesn't. The sun comes up, the planets go the other way. There's two directions. So the sun will come up on the horizon. The horizon is in the east, but on the chart, it's opposite a compass as well, is when the sun comes above the horizon. And depending on the time of year, like right now where I'm at, the sun is above the horizon right around 6:30 in the morning. So it immediately gets to that ascendant and then moves through the 12th house, the 11th house, the 10th house, and about approximately at noontime, it will be near the midheaven. You could see where it says midheaven. That's the 10th house cusp.
Midheaven and noon. It says noon on yours too.
That's right. The midheaven. So it's approximately noontime up there. Okay. And then the sun continues to move through the chart, goes through the 9th house, the 8th house, the 7th house, and then it's sunset. Then sun is below the horizon. And that is when the sun is setting for that time of year in your location. So it's not exactly 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. on the horizon or 7 p.m. on the descendant, because it depends on the time of year. So the sun will spend more, depending on the time of year, it'll spend more time above the horizon in this time of year. We're recording this in the summer, and it will spend a shorter amount of time below the horizon. And below the horizon is just nighttime. Straight at the bottom of the chart, the IC, that's approximately when midnight is. So 6 in the afternoon, this time of year, would be close to over by where the descendant is. That's where the sun would be. Because that's just the earth spinning. That's just the earth spinning. And so when people have a lot of planets above the horizon, then they tend to be more extroverted in most of their life. It doesn't mean a person doesn't enjoy private time and being alone, and they may even label themselves an introverted person, but they really are, in essence, the shell is an outer person, and vice versa. And then some of us just have stuff splashed everywhere, and some have things more on the east side, which is, again, opposite the compass. If you have more on the east side, then you're going to be somebody who tends to be more personable or outgoing. And then the other side, the western side, is more somebody who is more interested. This is generalizing too, by the way, in the partnership and the give and take in relationships and the give and take in life. So it does vary. There's a lot of variations that go on there. So there is that. And what you see on the screen here is just the basic setup of the first house is ruled by Mars and is Aries. It's its natural placement. So these are the signs for the natural placements. Of course, once we're born, and as the planets move through the solar system, it's like a gamer roulette, right? When the ball goes one way, the wheel goes the other, and everything gets all mixed up.
Yes.
Right. And that's what creates our multifaceted personalities.
And each of the houses kind of has a definition. Like, I know the first three.
Yeah.
Aries is I am.
Yep.
Taurus is I have. And Gemini is I think.
Yeah.
So those three are the foundational houses of who we are. Then when you get past that, each one of those houses has a meaning with it too, along with
there's a lot of meanings with it. And the anchor houses, if you will be the four angles in the chart. So the four cardinal zodiac signs, or the four these four houses. The first house, which is cardinal, which is Aries. The fourth house, which is Cancer. That's cardinal water. The seventh house is Libra, which is cardinal air. And then the 10th house is cardinal earth, which is Capricorn. So those are the anchors. So basically that is the northeast, southwest anchor. Right. So that is astronomy, because we know where northeast, south, and west is at the moment of our birth. Well, most of us don't know where it is, but we do know. That's an easy measurement for us. And, the astrology system I use is the quadrant system, Placidus house system. So that just gets us, so we know where northeast, south, and west is. And we can just see that at the time and latitude and longitude and time of a person's birth. That's what sets it up. Software does all of that now. You don't have to know that. We used to have to know all of this when I first started this. We didn't have an app. I had to know how to calculate this before I could even interpret it. Oh my God, what a huge step that was. I'm so glad that was over.
Oh God, if I never see another ephemeris.
No, I use an ephemeris every single day. This is a great ephemeris book. This is a great book. It's a Llewellyn book. It's the Daily Planetary Guide. I teach out of this every day. If you follow my YouTube shorts, they're on Instagram, they're on TikTok. It's just the aspects. I'll pick an aspect for every single day that's listed in this book and talk about that for 60 seconds. And just to give us like the weather, it's like the weather. This is what's happening right now. How do you want to use it, or what does it resonate for you? So we could stop that if you want.
Okay, so are we done with our chart?
We're done with that chart, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so these are the couple questions. We have one person who has two very good fundamental questions. So we're going to look at them.
Okay, one at a time. Yeah.
Yeah. What's the difference between looking at your birth chart and a progress chart?
Okay. Well, the difference is the birth chart is that where and when you were born. The progress chart depends on which type of progression you're looking at, but we'll talk about the secondary progressions. It's called solar arc secondary progressions. And what that does is the software calculates it for us nowadays. We move the chart ahead 1 day per year, right? So if it's not your birthday, then it just does it for whatever date that is. So what it does is the premise behind that is that when we see what progressions are doing, how they're compared to your birth chart, some
Mhm.
things don't move that far, even in a whole lifetime. If you think
Mhm.
about it, the average person, let's just say the average person lives to 90. That's only 90 days from the day you were born, whatever that day is back in,
Mhm.
1960 for me, you know. The planets are going to be in just a small area. They're not going to move too far. The outer
Mhm.
planets barely move. It gives us a look at the soul progression, if you will. This is the
Mhm.
premise behind it. My thought too is, what is the soul looking for? It's always a longer picture than most transits. So we're looking at, what's going on in the person's life,
Mhm.
that's going on behind the scenes, or it's inner work, if you will. Um, the number one thing I look at when it comes to progressions, actually, there's a few things, but one of the bigger things is what lunar phase is this person progressed into?
Mhm.
Because those lunar phases, we start somewhere in our when we're born. We're born under a specific lunar phase, one of 8,
Mhm.
and it just keeps moving forward. But it takes 27 years, about 27 years, for the moon to progress through all of the lunar phases.
Mhm.
27 years, almost the same as the Saturn return.
Mhm.
So we have an opportunity in life, depending again where we start, to understand. And it takes a couple of years, 2.5, 3 years, to progress through each of the 8 lunar phases. It
Mhm.
shows us our growth, our internal growth. It's not like the day-to-day decisions we're making. It's like sitting down and asking the person, it's like, well, where were you 5 years ago?
Mhm.
How have you changed? How have things changed? And of course, the subject matter depends on the person, depends on where it's happening in their chart, depends on the signs that they are in, the 2 planets, the sun and the
Mhm.
moon are in. And we can glean through that. We can learn through looking at the progressed moon
Mhm.
phase, just that thing in progressions, just to see where a person is,
Mhm.
what their soul path is. Are they completing a cycle, or are they just beginning one? Are they in a full moon phase? Last
Mhm.
quarter? What is it? And that tells me so much about a person. I always look at that, actually, whether they don't nobody needs they don't even know I'm looking at it, because it informs me where they're at.
Mhm.
So when we do sessions, I approach that session knowing that they're in that lunar phase, and that for a couple of years they're focusing on letting go. Maybe they're focusing on building. Maybe they're in the final stage and it's just about complete surrender to what is.
Mhm.
We'll talk to them from that perspective, because I can see that. So that's how I use progressions. Plus, then we can just look at all kinds of other different techniques when it comes to that. But in essence, it is, where is that soul? What are you as a soul? What is the deeper process that's going on? And transits to those really are very active. Sometimes we can't even see anything in the natal chart. Transits to the natal chart, we look at transits to the progression, and we can see something else happening. And
Yeah.
it's
The
not as visible.
people who will sit there and they'll read in the little guide, your sun's in this and your moon's in this, and you'll go, that makes no sense to me. That's not what's
Mhm.
happening in my life. Sometimes you need to be ooched
Yeah.
up and learn
Yeah.
that you are growing in it. What I like about progressions is it gives people a chance to look at their growth and not feel like, oh
Right.
my God, forever I am going to have my moon at 10 degrees of this. And that's where I'm stuck.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I like that. And then what's the other half of that question?
Her other question was, I can only fit so many letters in a question. Is it the houses in your chart that you look at when one planet impacts another? Or is it the degree telling you that they mean different things, and which is more important? Thank you. And they're all important, guys.
They're all important. And the answer is yes and yes.
Hmm.
Yes, I do look at the houses, because the houses tell us what the category is, if you will.
Hmm.
I think of the houses in the astrology chart as if you had a mansion. I mean, I know
Mhm.
I have a 4-room apartment, but if you had a mansion and that had 12 rooms, but just, you do certain thing. What do you don't make your dinner in your bedroom, right? You
Okay.
do it in the kitchen. So I think of the houses as rooms in a home. They have a category. We could cook in our bedroom, but each sector has its duty
Mhm.
to what you should be focusing on there. So in the kitchen, we focus on what kitchen things,
Mhm.
food and eating and connecting. In the living room, you read, watch TV, whatever, just assign it. Think of it like that. So when I look at the houses in a chart, I mean, I just look at it and I just know that, if somebody has a natal planet in a certain house, then you have to combine those together.
Mhm.
You have to integrate those. That's part of the beginner class. You learn like a planet is in a zodiac sign. So how does that planet behave? It now has to filter its natural behavior through the sign that it's in, and then it does it in the area that the house that it's in. So those are the 3 stages.
Mhm.
And so when we're looking at transits, meaning planets in the sky, what's the planet and what's the sign? So what's
Mhm.
that mean? And then what's the mathematical angle it's making to a planet in your chart in a house? So you have to add all these together. So it takes a lot of technique and understanding. And while the AI apps are good
Mhm.
enough, they don't go that deep. They don't. They don't look at the bigger picture. Like I was telling you about the progressions, they
Mhm.
don't know where you are. They don't know what you're thinking or what your life challenges are. It just gives you what those aspects mean. And they're fine to give you a jumping point if you're
Mhm.
learning astrology. But there is a lot more to it than that. So, to answer the question with a little more clarity, yes, I do look at the houses, and the houses are meant to show us where in our lives
Yes,
basically the
like
subject
I said
matter.
about the first 3. I am,
Right,
I have, I think.
right. Yep.
Then you go into the family you're in, which is Cancer.
Mhm, mhm.
And
And then Leo is next, and is what am I excited about? What am I
mhm.
passionate about? What do I create? My creativity, and on we go. And, so it's that. So when there is a planet in the sky making a mathematical, so that's where the degrees come in, making a mathematical degree, a mathematical aspect. So
Mhm.
one of those geometry shapes to something in your chart, then some of those aspects are flowy and some of them create tension and stress. Some of them create awareness, and some of them really, we have to stop and pivot. We have to stop. We have to stop. It's kind of like where we are right now in this country. We're
Mhm.
not having the quincunx aspect that I'm thinking of, but we are at absolutely a big old pivot point. And which direction we're going, we're still not sure. We've stopped and we're processing right now. Right, you can just see it
Mhm.
buffering. The United States is in a buffer mode right now.
Right.
And we're like, what direction are we going? Are we going this way or this way, this way or this way?
And the other thing that's happening out there
Hmm.
is the big outer planets, which are the slower moving ones,
Yeah.
which is like Uranus and
Uranus, Neptune, Pluto are the big
right,
ones. Yeah.
yeah, they they don't move quickly, and
No.
when they get somewhere, they stay there for a while. Like that's what's
Hmm.
going on now. Is it Pluto that's taken 248 years to come back to where it was
Yeah. It's
when when
244.
our
Yeah.
country was founded?
Hmm.
So imagine if it's like the 248th birthday party. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the day that it is. They're moving very slowly, but we have all those major planets are moving into different signs within 18 months of each other, is it? Or a little more
Yeah.
than 2 years.
Mhm. Something
And
like that. Something like that. I don't have
um,
that number in my head, but yeah, next year, Neptune
mhm,
moves into Aries. Saturn has a 28-year cycle, so it's not as big as
mhm,
Uranus. Uranus is 84 years. But yeah, Saturn and Neptune move into Aries. Jupiter in the middle of next year moves into Cancer. Uranus eventually will move into Gemini, and Pluto right now is Aquarius. It moves into Capricorn. I believe it's September 1st. Goes back into Capricorn again.
When next time it bumps its butt out, it's moving out, and it's not going to go ever back there again. What?
I swore. I just said I swear. I'm glad you had talked over me.
Oh,
I said I can't wait.
I know. Well, right now where it's bouncing is right on top of my natal. In other words, where Jupiter is on my natal chart. I cannot wait for this to go away, guys.
I know. And just for a little insight, as far as like how slow they go, like Uranus started 2024 at retrograde at 19 degrees of Taurus. He goes retrograde in a few days. But he ends the year at 23 degrees of Taurus. He got all the way up to where did he go? Up to 27. So he started at what did I say it was? At 19 and went to 27 and retrogrades back to 20, ends the year at 24. So 19, 27, 24. So, so that's just a few degrees, 19 to 27. That's about 8 degrees. But since he retrogrades, he averages around 4 degrees in the whole year. Pluto will average, 3 or 4, as well as Neptune. And not even that much, actually, 2 to 3 degrees for Neptune and Pluto. And Neptune and Pluto have been approximately 60 degrees away from each other since the 1940s. So everybody alive has Neptune and Pluto sextile. They just kind of go with each other. So they're different signs, but they go with each other. And so it's they move super slow. So I keep for aspects for those guys. This is just after 30 years of being an astrologer. I take a really tight orb when it comes to Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So no matter what the aspect is, sextile, square.
I'm going to explain a word you just said that they probably don't know. Orb means how many degrees can something be out from the other.
So like orbit, how far out of the orbit from the exact conjunction, this is like me, the degree, or how far out from, depending on the aspect we're looking at, how far out. So if it's a 60-degree aspect, one planet to another can be 60 degrees. That's exact, but it could be 56 degrees away up to 64 degrees away from each other. That's the orb of 60.
It's sort of like it's there and it has an influence, but when it reaches real exactitude, which is right on the number. And the other thing is there are 30 degrees in every sign in the zodiac. So when you say it's 27 degrees of Taurus, that means it's 27 degrees into Taurus.
Yep.
But there are 30 degrees marked out. But the first degree, because geniuses did this, it's a 0.
Right. So we start with 0 and we end with 29.
End with 29.
Yeah. Same thing with the minutes. And the minutes, not clock time minutes. It's the measurement, the latitude, longitude measurement.
Kind of minutes.
And we go to 0 to 59 there. And so there's 60 minutes in every degree. Okay. And again, not clock time. All right. We have another question.
Yeah. 2 questions having to do with outer planets and retrograde and natal. Does that mean anything? And apparently she has
constants: Jupiter, Saturn, and Neptune. No, that's it depends, on it really. Well, when it comes to Neptune, honestly, I'm going to tell you this right now, because just the cycle we're in, and this shifts this slowly shifts in decades, right? But right now we're in the phase where most, second half of the year, sometimes it starts in April, we'll have Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. That's 5 of, the 2 socials and the outers, all retrograde at the same time. Like we're in.
And y'all understand they don't move backwards. They look move
It
it back.
just looks like it. It's an optical illusion, but the optical illusion is an opportunity for us to process.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of evolutionary astrologers will look at the retrogrades as um, you're going to take your time with whatever that planet
Mm-hmm.
in that sign represents and in the house it's in. You're going to be relearning something
Mm-hmm.
that you've, pulled in from prior lifetimes. But we can't ever consciously, for the most part, know what prior lifetimes is. So how can we know what we're even learning from a prior lifetime? This is me questioning my own my own spirituality here, but because I've been doing that lately. And so the process is like, so even if you believe in that or don't believe in that, when we have a lot of planets that are retrograde, it is a lifetime and opportunity for us not to like overextend ourselves too much when it comes to what that planet is in that sign in that house.
Mm-hmm.
It's a period of going slow. So, for instance, like right now, we have Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto are retrograde right now. Mercury, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto. It just happens. And when we get to September, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto are all retrograde. And that happens. And even in October, we have Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto retrograde. Pluto
Mm-hmm.
stops, Jupiter begins. So it is not uncommon, Constance, to have lots of planets retrograde.
Mm-hmm.
It's not uncommon. And again, it just means that you're processing things slowly. But I would ask you to know, it's like, how do you even know you're processing things slowly? You don't. You're born with this. You're born with that. You don't know any different. Just like people who are, when you're learning astrology and you know some of these aspects aren't so easy to deal with, but you don't tell a person that they got a really crappy chart. You know that they've been working hard through everything that they have in life,
Mm-hmm.
and they can be amazing people and look incredibly successful, and they've worked really hard and they're like, I don't know, it's just what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you don't
Yes.
know any different. So even if you have something in your chart, you don't know any different. Awareness about what you have in your chart is important because that way you can say, oh my God, I understand myself better now.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew that. Or, when I first started learning astrology, yeah, it was like that. It was like, oh my God, if I had known that sooner.
God, one less marriage.
Yeah. You are not kidding. You're not wrong.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I
Yeah.
had an astrologer who did my chart after I've been married and had gone through my divorce. I only had one divorce, so I used to say my first divorce. People are like, "How many were there?"
I had 3 of each. Didn't work out.
And
My last divorce, I was 29 and I was 32 and I'm 64 now. So that was it. Yeah, half my
yeah,
life ago. It's the last time I
she
was married.
she looked at my chart and she said, "Oh, I'm going to make you study your chart on the day you got married." And if there
Mhm.
was ever a bunch of planets that were all lining up to say, "Boy, were you clueless and blind." So and that's how you learn, by watching your own
It
chart.
is. It is. And that's why we love our own chart. We love working with our own charts when we first learn.
Yeah,
So you'll
and
get a copy of your chart when you get the class
mhm.
because that's what I want you to work with. It's just like
And you
really
can do
honing in
it
on
much
yourself.
better if you do it with your own, unless I had some pretty obvious siblings, so we did some of their charts and
Oh,
I
that's
learned a
great.
lot. Yeah.
I know when I first started learning, like I said, it was back in the early 90s and, before the internet.
And before computers drew the charts for us.
That's right. I have 5 siblings and 2 parents and grandmother. So there were 9 of us in the household and we put up, how do you put the charts up? You put them up, you print them out and you stick them on the chalkboard in the class. We
Mhm.
were learning at the YMCA. And my dearest friend, Kim Rogers Gallagher, she's still my dear friend. And she was my first teacher. And yeah, we just put them and everybody gets up and goes and looks. Or you
Mhm.
print them all out and everybody gets a copy. And you could just see the patterns in
Mhm.
my family. There's a whole bunch of different, there's one specific pattern that you can see it in every single person's chart. Pretty amazing. So family dynamic, you can actually see it in even if you're adopted, it because you're drawn into that family, however
Yeah.
that happens. You don't have to be birthed by anybody in the your family. But
Well,
anyways,
the stars are where you come from.
yeah.
Constance had a second question.
Okay.
Does having rising degree and north node virtually in the same spot, 2 degrees apart, roughly, mean anything?
Uh, it means the north node is on the ascendant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If they're are they the same zodiac sign? Is the question.
If it's the same sign, because they could be 2 degrees apart, and one
Me
could
too.
be in one sign and one could be in the other.
Mhm. If that's if they're both the same sign, the understanding of that is because the north node is what we're striving for. It's
Mm-hmm.
what the soul is here to learn, and we're not necessarily good at it. It's like
Mm-hmm.
having a favorite thing, but you really suck at it.
Yeah,
So
she
you
said
have
they're
to.
the same sign.
They're the same. So you have to practice. Tell me what they are, and I can add
Constance,
more to that.
yeah.
Um, the so with the ascendant, the same as the north node, that is actually like a supporting role. So the north node and the ascendant, the same sign, gives us an opportunity to learn that really well because your
Mm-hmm.
ascendant is the face to the world. So people will see you like that. It might not be who you are on the sun sign, but it's the face to the world and how people see you and how you present yourself. So it really that's a real sensitive place to have that north node because we're not always great at that what that sign
Mm-hmm.
is, because what the opposite sign is what we know, and it's like everything we know about it,
Libra. She's in Libra.
it's Libra. So okay, so it's learning to be um, harmonious and balanced in
Mm-hmm.
partnerships and relationships, but not to throw yourself so into it that you lose your independence, but also not being so independent that you can't have a harmonious relationship. That Aries Libra opposition, because the South Node is exactly behind
Mm-hmm.
opposite the north node, and it gives us that whole flare of who am I, what am I moving towards. I want to work towards relationships, harmonious relationships, being kind. We don't want to over sacrifice ourselves, and sometimes we will. So yeah, that's just in a nutshell. We want to see what else is involved, but that's it in a nutshell.
And you
Yeah.
can take Dorothy's class and figure it out.
Yeah. 14 and 16. Yep, that's good.
That's not
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
Libras make me crazy. They're so balanced. I'm a Taurus, Scorpio, Taurus Sun, Scorpio rising, and I just want to get out there and do it. I'm just like, screw all this stuff. Let's rise from and I'm at the very end of Scorpio too. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, let's just get this done. I will tell you something when you put people's charts together, no one could figure out how I got along with my incredibly systematic, scientific physics husband, my second husband, and we got along beautifully. And until we did the charts and we had the same ascendant.
I
Exactly.
love that in relationships. When it comes to relationship astrology,
Mm-hmm.
I personally find that um, not just personally, but even when I do the charts of couples, I find that is really a nice combination between people
Mm-hmm.
um, to have a very similar house setup, meaning
Mm-hmm.
what they have on the ascendant, like, for example, Constance having Libra there,
Mm-hmm.
and then the next sign is Scorpio, and then Sag and Capricorn.
Mm-hmm.
And because the planets in the sky are moving through the same area for
Mm-hmm.
both of the people at the same time. So even though they're making different aspects to the planets, having, for example, Uranus moving through the same house in both of their charts, they're
Mm-hmm.
a couple. They'll work together on whatever the energy is being stirred up for them, because it's stirring, the same thing is getting activated and stirred up for both of them, even
Mm-hmm.
though they still have their own personal transits going on.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I find that people really, a lot of people stay together really well when they have that. But then again, there's other things too.
Yes, I know. Well, no, he and I got along.
Yeah.
If he hadn't died, we'd still be married. So that one I didn't divorce.
There you go. Yeah.
And
What do we got here?
well, somebody wants to know if Venus in the 12th house, a difficult placement for relationships.
It can be. It depends on what other aspects are with Venus, and it depends on the condition of Venus. So what sign is Venus in? Is Venus direct or retrograde? How close, what cycle is she in? Is she morning star or evening star?
Mm-hmm.
What aspects it's making to other planets? Is it connected to Pluto? Is it connected to Mars, Uranus? It depends on all of those things. But simply Venus in the 12th house does not have to be a difficult aspect. 12th house placements are about the inner journey, the past life. It's the things that our spiritual path, our dreams, not hopes and dreams like setting goals, but just, dream time, spiritual time, sacrifice to others, service to others, and not even the daily service like Virgo, but the deeper service. Like I can meditate for others. I'm going to pray for others. And so you would value those components. Now, you're not going to value all of it. I don't know anything about your life, but I would want to know. It's like, well, what do you value? Do you value meditation? Do you value your sleep? Do you value, going and, like doing Reiki in a hospice center, things like that. So it depends. But as far as relationships go, I mean, you need to be in a very kind and loving relationship. It's what you value. You would value that a lot, especially that spiritual connection.
Yeah.
But as you can tell, I just said a whole lot. And that whole lot means we have to look at your chart to see what else is.
Well, there's all those other troublesome little planets floating around in there.
Yeah.
That's what my friend said. If you could just tell me where they are and what to do with them, and don't tell me any angles. I don't want to hear about squares. I don't want to hear about conjuncts. I don't want to hear about sextiles. She said, I just want to know where they are. And I said, it doesn't quite work that way.
Yeah. I do my best. I do my best to not overload an individual with astrology terminology when we're doing, especially when we're doing private session. If you're learning, I'm going to tell you all about it. But when we're in private session, it's not your job. It's my job to interpret what's going on. It's not yours to interpret what I'm saying. You need to know what I'm saying, right? So that's always been my thing, is just to really to do my best to keep it down to earth. I know we've talked a lot of astrology today because that's what we're here for, but real down to earth. I try to do that in my YouTube shorts. I'll tell you what I'm talking about immediately, and then this is how it feels. Use it wherever you need to use it, or not.
And occasionally you'll hear about things, because I probably know just enough astrology to be dangerous.
You do. I've seen it.
I don't think that's why it goes. But you'll hear things where they're in a square, that there's a 90-degree angle, and that's kind of high level tension. And but and then there's the trine, where if it's like when I do numerology and I teach the number 4, it's like a square. It goes kunk, kunk, keeps hitting those corners. Each of those corners, you got to make a decision. That's kind of what a hard square is on a chart. But then there's the trine, where the energy just moves around in that trine. Just so lovely and wonderful.
It's the same because it's the same element. It's because it's the same element. Usually, I mean, sometimes by the math, they can still be in a trine aspect and not be the same element. But I'm a purist, and if they're in a trine, they must be in the same element, or I'm not going to talk about it until they are.
And and energy does flow more easily in that case. But if you're never challenged, and you just roll with the energy that just swoops around you, you're
Boy,
not going to do great things. I mean,
you
I
won't.
mean, you may by accident,
Yeah.
but nothing's pushing you. And I
Right.
find where there's lots of squares, there's
Mhm.
lots of things pushing me, and they're reminding me I'm in this plane and I need to work with what I got.
This is
And
true. Yeah. Yeah. You
and
know, the caterpillar, when it's coming out of the chrysalis, to be that butterfly, it has to struggle. If
mhm,
it doesn't struggle to get out, then it doesn't have the strength to pump the
to
fluid
survive.
from its body into its wings so it can fly.
Mhm,
Same any of those creatures that do their metamorphosis, they have to struggle to be born, and because that's what makes them strong. And if they don't, then they don't make it. But yeah, when I see somebody who's just lots and lots of the easier aspects, the
mhm,
trines and the sextiles, if there's nothing making a square, life is just too easy.
mhm,
Sometimes we do need those breaks, right? I always call them like a life. It's like a lifetime a
mhm.
lifetime break. But that's rarely the case, honestly, if you really think about the soul's journey throughout thousands of lifetimes, especially if you're earthbound soul, um, and not here for the first time from some other planet, right?
Mhm,
Um, but transits to a trine, a square aspect to the tip of one of those trines or a grand
mhm.
trine or something, that will push a person, even if they're born with lots of trines or sextiles, that will slow one of the outer planets making a 90-degree to one of those points will definitely give that person some things to think
It'll
about.
send a little shock through.
Oh, it'll be a
And
struggle. Yeah.
if, of course, the most famous one was when everybody kept talking in 2018, 2019 about this conjunction, da 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 da, that was coming in Capricorn on the
That was
12th of
endemic.
January.
Yeah.
And they were like, what is going to happen? And I remember watching people talk about it, and I'd talk about it, and I kept reading. I was out reading publicly until February of 2020. And I even did one large birthday party with a whole bunch of young
Mhm.
venture capitalists. It was this guy's birthday. And everybody's life was stopping. And I couldn't figure out why. I kept
Yeah.
seeing it in the cards, but I was like, and I would look at it and I go, is this a war? And I'm going, no. And so the birthday boy at the party, he said,
Yeah.
could it be something like a plague? I said, well, it feels like medieval plague time. Everybody get the hell out of London if you want to live.
Yeah.
And
I know.
little did I know that less than 2 weeks later, my guys would be pulling me off the streets and saying,
Yeah.
go home because you can't
Yeah.
breathe this stuff in. And if you want to see, there's a really good documentary, and it was on Prime. So if you
Mhm.
have the Amazon membership, you can see it. And it's called The Astrology of a Pandemic.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's a really good one. They're
And
really right on track, right on track.
that will
Mhm,
show you a whole lot about how
mhm.
this works. And the astrologer I trained with was really, made her living doing personal charts and stuff. But
Right,
um, she did archetypal astrology.
right,
Yeah,
right,
that's
yeah.
what she did a lot of.
Mhm.
Okay, we got another wacko question. It's not a wacko question. It's a very reasonable question.
What's the question?
Dorothy and I even did a show on this. Yods.
Oh, the odds. I have a yod with apex, Saturn in Cancer in the 7th, Neptune in the 12th, and Jupiter in the 2nd. Right, so there's a sextile between Jupiter and Neptune.
Mm-hmm.
Does it mean in relationships? Um, I have a yod with Saturn at the apex, but it's a different direction, different sign.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean not necessarily? I guess it can, if it depends on your perspective, you know. I would need to see your whole chart to really
Yeah,
get
there's
the
a lot
whole.
of other things that can
There's
impinge.
so many other things that can, but just the yod, the standalone yod,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it can create. The yod is, um, first off, it represents something medical that
Mm-hmm.
needs to be addressed in this lifetime, and I will not go any further into it than that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but it also represents, yeah, that where we have to, in our own hearts, I have
Mm-hmm.
this strongly, and in our hearts, we have to know that everything is exactly as it should be. And I know that I'm not just blowing smoke. This
Mm-hmm.
is when it comes to the odds, we feel uncomfortable all the time about between the connection between these three planets.
Mm-hmm.
And we feel the discomfort, the discord here.
Mm-hmm.
We make choices when, especially when it's activated. We
And
make
it's
choices
activated when a planet goes across it, or
or makes a mathematical
right.
connection to
Mm-hmm.
the geometric mesh.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to activate that yod, we have to make an adjustment. So we feel with the energy and the information we have at this moment in time, we're going to make a choice because we think it's going to relieve pressure and make us feel better. And it
Mm-hmm.
does, but it won't take long before you get used to it. Whatever, you get used to it, the energy gets used to it, and that
Mm-hmm.
feeling comes back again. And now with the information that you have now, you have to make another choice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's never settled.
Mm-hmm.
It's never settled between the three planets. Well, the two bottom planets, the sextile, those guys are fine. Neptune and Jupiter in this chart, those are fine. Those two can get along easily. They're the same. What sign are they? Does it say?
Apex is
Doesn't.
Saturn.
Neptune and Jupiter. It doesn't say what sign they are, but whatever they are, they're either both going to be, they're going to be the same polarity, whether it's yin or yang, so
Mm-hmm.
receptive or expressive. Um, Earth, water, which is the receptive, or they will be air or air and fire, which is like, I got to take action. So we'll decide what that is to begin with. And so that also deciphers how you use this yod. So basically 2 steps forward, pause, pivot, 1 step back,
Mm-hmm.
pause, evaluate, 2 steps forward. And that's really what it is.
Yeah, Dupree, it might really do. You've obviously got a chart somewhere. Might do for you to really learn how to watch for those, for the timing on those.
Yeah, that Mars Jupiter conjunction a few days back
Yeah.
was exactly on my Venus, which is the bottom part of my yod. It goes up to my
Mm-hmm.
Saturn and it's over to Uranus. So my Sun and my Venus, Gemini, sextile Uranus to Saturn. And so it's for me with the Venus and the Saturn in from the houses and where it's going,
Mm-hmm.
financial choices and decisions
Mm-hmm.
and responsibilities. And that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
How I earn my living, and how I
Mm-hmm.
use information, Gemini, and the computer's been giving me a hard time. So there's that, because
Well,
that's the information. And I had to spend money to get it fixed and they didn't fix it, so it's like, I guess I'm at a pivot point right now. I'm at a pause point right now and trying to work my yod that's being activated by planets in the
yeah,
sky.
and it's also that yod's involved in a
Yes.
square, in a T.
Yeah.
Okay. Jupiter, its ninth house is decided by your ascendant, so I can't tell you when Jupiter's going to be in your ninth house.
Right, Mimi. The chart spins. Actually, let's be clear. The zodiac belt is anchored out in space by
Mm-hmm.
where the sun and the path of the sun and the ecliptic.
Mm-hmm.
That's called the ecliptic, and the celestial equator cross. That's 0 Aries, 0 Libra. That's anchored out in space. The Earth is spinning. So Jupiter will be in the ninth house for an hour to 2 hours every single day at a different time, depending on where you are on the globe. So every day, we could say, honestly, every day.
Yeah, it's moving all the time, guys. So,
yeah. That's
um,
a great question, though.
okay, what we got going? The rest of them are questions that Yod is the other word for Yod. The other phrase for it is finger of God, if that doesn't get you bad enough. It's
It
pointed
is.
right there.
That's true. It is called the finger of God.
Yes. Okay. And then the other thing I
Because you're
want to,
constantly saying, Jesus Christ, do I have to do this again?
and it is,
So
yes,
you're always invoking the Almighty because
yes,
it's a frustrating aspect.
this God wants you.
Yeah.
Okay. Other classes, you got Dorothy's wonderful class. Then, if you really want to learn about tarot, I'm going to be starting another class September 10th, and it's going to run through October 15th. It's 6 weeks long. There will be, in the month following, 4 informal reading group times for the classes for us to practice together. One of my groups just broke off and did that all on their own, and they're still reading together, and I drop in occasionally to see how they're doing. They're all doing really, really well, scarily well. And
That's good.
so if you want to, we're just trying to give you ways you can watch us and learn more
Yeah.
about where we are. And I see Gigi's here and Jen. And Sherry Sype, our wonderful person, is sending out all of our information on how to donate. Talks about your Patreon.
Oh, thank you.
And
Yeah,
your
I do have
email.
that too. I go super deep. I've got 4 different tiers there, so you can just check them out. But, yeah, I
And if you're
recommend
really
tiers.
curious, you know, it's so hard unless you start looking at things systematically. So I'm so excited Dorothy started this beginner thing, because I get so tired of trying to explain to people.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's like I get really angry when the tower shows up and everybody freaks in a reading. Well, if nothing ever changes, nothing's going to get better, and it may just continue to build up and get worse, you know.
Yeah.
And if you learn tarot, you learn that the card after the tower is the star. That's when we see the whole new horizon, because that nasty old tower is out of the way. I mean, a lot of it's in how you get exposed to it and how it gets framed to you. And since so many of the people who are here, I'm sure, fell into watching us during the pandemic.
Yeah.
It's just it was a good time for me to have the grounding I had and understanding what was going on. Dorothy actually and I met before the pandemic, and she read my chart, and she did a progressed chart for me.
I did.
And
I don't remember what I did, but I'll take your word for it.
yeah, everything, all my stuff ended up in Cancer, and that was what was going on.
Oh, yeah. So who knew you'd be staying home so much? Hey, quickly, somebody asked about empty houses. Don't worry about the empty houses. Whatever zodiac sign is on the cusp of that empty house, that planet rules that area of your chart. So when that planet, either by transit in the sky, is doing something to your chart, or that planet is being aspected, say you have Aries on an empty house, then Mars, the planet Mars, is going to be wherever it is in the sky, and whatever is happening to your own Mars, because your Mars will be in charge of that area. It just activates. We only have, of course, you can put all the asteroids in. I see plenty of people putting hundreds of asteroids in, and the chart just looks like a big cluster, you know what. But I just use the planets and a couple other things. So we have 12 houses. The planets are never all spread out. So just about everybody has a couple empty houses.
And even if you don't have a lot of planets on Earth, or you have one, I know one person who has no planets on Earth, and it freaks her out. But she has planets that are squared to Earth, or they're trying to Earth. They've got aspects that flow into those signs. So it's not nearly.
Yeah. And you'll find somebody to fill in that hole. It's just like taking water out of an artesian well. You take water out of a well, it's just getting filled right back in again. So if you have something lacking in your astrology chart, especially like elements or empty houses, somebody else in your life is going to fill in that space for you, so you learn about it. It really, who knows if you've already know enough about it that you don't need to learn anymore. Who knows? That's only speculation. But You will have people in your life that fill in the empty blanks. And you'll also have people in your life, and they're usually their family, that will tick you off, that will tick off every hard aspect you have. So you can learn those lessons again and again.
They were born, the people that were born to know which buttons to push and which house
I
to
know. And it's your job to learn how not to
get triggered.
say, here's the button.
Mhm. Look at this lovely button I have over here in Taurus. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to end it because I like to end. It's just 1:00, and I think an hour is plenty of time. And Dorothy and I need to go do other things. And y'all
Yes.
have a lovely day.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.